Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Dr. Kimberly Harms. She is a qualified neutral conflict management and transitions specialist, death doula, and former grief counselor. Award-winning bestseller author and international speaker with 30 years of dental grief, conflict, and transition management experience. Kim is the author of Are You Ready? How to Build a Legacy to Die For, winner of the 2024 Pacific Book Awards for Best Inspirational Book. And it sounds so inspirational. Just to read the second part of, the book title, A Legacy to Die For. It just stopped me in the moment that I read that for the first time. I was paused for a while. And the question that came to mind immediately was the description of legacy.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe that? What is a legacy from your perspective, Kim?
Well, your legacy is every interaction you have with every person in your life. That's the legacy that you're leaving. You touch people's lives and you're leaving a legacy. And you don't have to win a Nobel Prize or the Pulitzer Prize or anything like that. Just being kind is your legacy.
Gosh, I love that simplicity. So it's very simple. It's not something that we have to think about or overthink or try too hard. I guess that by talking to so many people and being around so many people for so long now about these things, I got the feeling that they were trying really hard. Some people really trying to leave this trail behind them, the so-called legacy. And that didn't resonate with me because they were trying. I think that was something that was not really what I would like to do. I would like to be me, be true to myself, and then by doing so, kind of leave the legacy, the concept of legacy that you just spoke of. Is that something that resonates with you as well, this idea of being true to you, to your heart, and going from there without even trying too hard to leave something behind?
Yes, and in my book, I talk about a lot of different legacies. And I'm 68 years old, so I've been around for a while. And during that time, I've met some amazing people that nobody really ever heard of, but they just did amazing things. I met people from Rwanda, for instance, who overcame a genocide and have turned their country into a beautiful, prosperous place. I've met people that just my grandparents or great grandparents that loved their children, taught them to work hard, taught them values. And they've left amazing legacies that have lasted for generations. And I think that it's just simple things that are so important in your life, not the big stuff. The simple things are the big stuff, not the things that the world kind of tells you is big stuff.
Yes. So the topics that we will discuss today relates to your book, Emotional Wellness, Grief, Conflict, Legacy Planning. But you have 30 years of clinical dentistry and 21 years of a national spokesperson for the American Dental Association. I was just kind of trying to put those two areas, all of this together. How did you come to do this? How did you integrate both somehow?
Well, when I lost our son. We lost a son to suicide, which was a horrible situation in my life, just exploded my life. But a year after that, I found out that the fingers my drilling fingers that I used to hold the drill had nerve damage in them, and I was told immediately I had to stop practicing. And one day I went from full time to 0 time. And I had to really reevaluate. Okay, so I lost so many identities in my life, as a mother, first of all, that now as a dentist, and I had great worldly success in dentistry. Those are big titles that I had. But when it came down to it, I realized that didn't really make much of a difference. It just came down to who I was and how I was relating to the people around me, especially my family. And so I became a grief counselor after that, and then just went in. Everything else just kind of followed in place.
Wow. Yes, I read that in your bio, and I put some hearts around it. Your losses, and the question that comes to mind is, why do we suffer? Why do we go through, especially this kind of suffering that you went through, which to me, it feels like it's not my own experience because I never lost anyone, but it feels like the most painful experience in our human experience. So, how do you make sense of it?
I don't think you really do. I think for me, what I had to do, and it was such a shock. I mean, we had this amazing, loving, kind, caring, brilliant son who was at Columbia University and was a National Merit Scholar. He had been a jazz pianist, so that's why I like Columbia. He could study engineering, play piano in their jazz program. Everything was going his way. He was even elected to student government at Columbia. Like, who does that? This kid just had everything going his way. He came home at Christmas, was on top of the world. And of course, as a parent, any parent knows that when they're on top of the world, you're on top of the world. And then he went back to school, and 2 weeks later, his girlfriend broke up with him, which is a normal thing in life. That's just a normal life event. But 45 minutes later, he took his own life. And it was such a complete explosion of ourselves. Your heart just explodes into a million pieces. Your view of the world as it's supposed to work is different. You waking up in the morning is so hard because you realize that your true life, your real life, is your worst nightmare. I mean, it's just, you can't explain it. It is the worst thing I could ever imagine. But what happened to me, I had something happen to me that really changed my trajectory on that, and that was a couple of months after my son died, and I was back at work, and I was in the zombie phase. Anyone that's been through a catastrophic loss knows the zombie phase. You're dead on the inside. You're trying to go through the motions. You're trying to smile. And I was walking out of my office, and my husband was talking with his cousin. And his cousin came over to me with his finger wagging in my face. And he said to me, "Don't you ever let your remaining children feel that they are not enough. Don't you do that." And it struck me like a lightning bolt because he had lost his brother at about the same age that we lost Eric. But then he lost his parents emotionally at the same time. He felt that they were so consumed in grief over the loss of their son that they didn't have any way to actively participate in the lives of their remaining children. They couldn't see what was going on with their remaining children. So the remaining children felt they lost their parents too at the same time. And I realized I was headed in that direction. I mean, I was in the bottom of that pit. I was barely breathing. I thought I'd stay there the rest of my life. The thought of joy ever again was just completely foreign to me. But then I realized, wait a minute, my life affects other people's lives. We're all connected. And if I allow this to happen, then I'm going to seriously affect in a negative way my husband, who had just had a liver transplant. So he was vulnerable anyway. He was going through the same thing I was, and then my two daughters. So I just decided at that time that I was going to fight and kick and scratch and claw my way out of that grief pit. And I worked, you'd work your way up, and then something happens and you fall back down in it again. It's just a long and it's a hard process. It takes different periods of time for different people. Some people, just like my cousin's parents, can never get out of it. But I worked and worked and worked, and eventually I could breathe the fresh air again, and I could see clearly. And because of that, I have 6 grandchildren. I never dreamed I'd have 6 grandchildren. I was afraid to have grandchildren because I didn't want to love anybody as much as I love my. It's like more kids, more possibilities to loss. That's how you kind of start to think.
Yes.
But I have 6,
Yes.
and I can be here. I'm here for each one of them, and I live in joy, which I never believed could possibly happen. But it was a long process. It was a hard process, but it's worth the fight. And it's a continuous fight. It's one of those never give up fights because, you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. But I will say that I, pretty much am 99% above the grief pit now. And again, it's a good place to live.
Wow, this is amazing. Yeah, I read about this, but then listening to you is very different. Yes, the energetic resonance is just very powerful. So thank you so much for being you. I want to thank you again. It's just so beautiful to see that. And it's not just strength or power. To me, it's just a reflection of life itself, of the divine,
Yes.
of the sacred. That I don't even have words to describe, but I can clearly see it when I meet it. So thank you again for being you. Gosh. So when it comes to, do you still do this work of counseling?
Yes, I was. I was a grief counselor. I became one after couldn't work anymore, and I did that for a while. But I wasn't healed enough on the inside for me. I was helpful for other
Right.
people, but what I felt was when I was working with people, I went back in the pit. So as I was crawling out of the pit, I would help someone else,
Yeah.
and then I'd fall back
Yeah.
in. I said, okay, maybe this is not a good time. So I did kind of give that up and moved on to mediation and things like that. Of course, I think I could do it now because I'm in better shape. But what I do now is, of course, now I'm a widow. My husband died 4 years ago. That presents its own amazing challenges because you're alone. I got married at 19. We were
Mm.
married for 44 years. We went through a lot of life together, and now you're alone. And so what I do now is I work with widows, and I'm beginning a coaching program for widows, and I've written a couple of widows books. I'm a person of faith, so I wrote some widows books, faith-based widows books,
Mm.
and it's very rewarding work because when you reach out, the best way to get out of the pit is to reach out and just try to help somebody else out. It's amazing what that does for you. It's just it lifts you out. It lifts you up too. So I find that as I work with
Yes.
these other
Yeah.
widows, we help each other, and it really allows us to find purpose in our life because you wonder what the heck's my purpose now? My husband's gone. What do I do now? I'm 68.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult we struggle with a lot of things about finding purpose, identity, happiness, and joy. And when we work together, it is so helpful to work with other people going through the same thing. So I get a lot of fulfillment out of working with other widows.
Right. Yeah. I have a quick question about, from your faith perspective, the spiritual perspective, how do you
Mhm.
see suffering? What is, like, everything that you've been through? What is, what insights have you gained spiritually?
Well, I'm a Christian, so I think I'm going to have a long talk with God when I get up there because to figure out what this is about, because I wish they would just give you a list, so you know what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
But I do think that I think, okay, so I've kind of come to the conclusion for my life. I
Yeah.
really believe we're
Yeah.
all on this earth to lift each other up and help each other get through it. I think this is a transitory period. We just get it, like help each other get through this time of trouble. And I was helped by so many people, including people in Rwanda. They were the best grief counselors ever. And so I think that's through my faith. I believe that my purpose is helping widows and raising my grandchildren.
Yeah.
And if I think that that's God's plan and that's God's purpose, first of all, I surrender to the plan. We talked about surrendering. You got to surrender because every plan my husband and I made for our retirement is like kaput. He's gone. We had
Yes.
a
Yeah.
retirement home. We had all this stuff planned. Like none of it happened. It's like it's all gone.
Yeah.
So the dreams and the plans that I had made are gone. And what I learned to do by believing in a purpose in life and believing I surrender to God, I just have new plans. I thought, okay, Lord, apparently those weren't your plans. So, what do I do now? And what I found, interestingly enough, is that um, my I'm very content and happy with the current plan, and I just go forward until
Right.
that plan changes, and I go somewhere else. I've realized that by surrendering, I lose my anxiety. I don't worry like I used to. I just kind of accept things as they are, and I make the best of it. And the suffering has taught me to do that. I'm a different person now than I was
Mm.
before the suffering. I was probably maybe a little more entitled, maybe, at the time. I might have had some feelings that I had. Maybe I had some control over my life. I kind of thought that, and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not true. So I learned a lot. And I think it's acceptance and surrender, and then just going, okay, let's go with the flow and just do the best we can. That makes my life, anyway, a joyful one.
Wow. So, talk to me for a moment about emotional wellness. We spoke about it off record. And And the way you said that was so beautiful too, because we all interpret messages in a different way. So when I heard that, for me, the message was just be kind to everyone, not because they are suffering, but because we can, because this is the place to come from. It just feels so much better anyway, being loving and kind to others. So, but how do you define that? How would you describe what that is, navigating this reality? What is to be emotionally well? And is a legacy passing that on?
I the emotional health is what I'm really focused on for the next generation. We talk a lot about financial wealth. Let's make sure our family's financially stable.
Yeah.
And that's important. Do the best you can. Not everyone can do that. Sometimes 25% of us baby boomers are going to end up with long-term care. And if that happens to me, everything's gone, right? So we don't know
Yeah.
what that situation is going to be like. But we need to try to focus on building emotional wealth within our families. And that means we tell them that we love them, that we're proud of them. We help them through their struggles. We let them know. And you said it beautifully. One of my favorite phrases is, I'm enough by myself. I'm enough who I am. I'm enough with my failures. I'm enough. I just go through and understand that I'm enough. And so I want us to focus on living with your legacy in mind. And your legacy, the biggest one is love. You can teach hard work, art. There's so many things. I like to work with clay, so I'm teaching my children clay art, so that's kind of a little bit of a legacy. But all those legacies that we can leave are very important. And if we live with that in our mind, that I want to live and today I want to be helpful to someone or be a legacy to someone, rather than thinking, oh darn, that life is treating me badly. Don't that victim mentality that unfortunately is out there is so damaging to you. If you have it, it hurts you more
Right.
than anyone. And so I just want us to spread that emotional wealth to the next generation. And when I talk about my book, part of it is what happened was when I became a widow, I thought, okay, whoa, what do I do now? I'm between menopause and death. What the heck? What's the plan here for
Yeah.
this time? And we don't like to talk about this period of life. So I wrote the book to kind of develop this plan. What can we do? We build legacy. We face death, and then we make sure our kids are emotionally secure. And then we have to do all that stuff. We got to do the will. We got to do all this. We have to take that responsibility, have everything in one place, little legacy binder with everything in it, so that when I die, my children can open up a book. Everything is in there, including love letters, because the first love letter, the most famous love letter of all time, was written by St. Valentine, and it was to be delivered after his death. And so I think it's so important to write notes and letters for our children, write Valentines to them, and I have them in my folder so that when I die, just in case they don't realize how much I love them, because I got everything right in one place. I took the time to do it. They should realize that. But just in case they don't, as they're going through that, looking at the
Yeah.
titles and all the passwords and all the stuff I got in there, they'll see these Valentines and they'll realize that they were loved. So I think we just need to spread that love that we've got. I was, helped by so many people when I was down in that pit. Spread that love, and spread the pride that you have in your children. Every child needs to believe that they are loved by their parents and their parents are proud of them. So spread that on to your children even after you die.
Wow. That's a big one in the beautiful legacy. The interesting thing in your book, you have the contents part 1. So the one that caught my attention immediately was that one, the legacy of love. And then the legacy of peace. I just highlighted them like my favorites. The legacy of faith.
Encouragement is one of my favorites. Encouragement is what I try. That's probably what I'm focusing on now with the
Right.
widows. Yeah.
Yes. And this is something that we can always learn, right, Kim? We don't have to kind of think that we know all of this, how to do it. Like you said beautifully, we're here to help one another, to support one another. So it's something that we can always learn little by little, step by step. Because some people, they feel overwhelmed with these huge concepts, especially love too. And I noticed the self-love is a big one that most people, they have a hard time saying to themselves that they love themselves. So I didn't see this one here, but of course it's part of love. So talk to me for a moment about that. How do we leave the legacy to ourselves, self-love and in the emotional wealth? to our
I
own
think
selves.
that is such a critical thing. I think, first of all, accepting yourself for who you are. And unfortunately, it took me a long time to get there. So I'm trying to pass this on to my children. I had a daughter that was a little anxious about something the other day, and I tried to help her think, really, is that
Yeah.
what would you be saying to your child if this happened to them? Because they're kind of like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. We need to accept
Yes.
ourselves for who we are. We need to know that we are enough alone, who we are, and and that involves, if you make a mistake or you do something wrong, you part of that self-love is to be able to apologize and make amends and do all those things. So it's not a narcissistic love. It's just an accepting yourself and being at peace with who you are,
Right.
with all of your various imperfections, and we all got them. And unfortunately, we don't the media doesn't portray that very well, but we've all got lots of flaws, and
Right.
we just have to accept ourselves, flaws and all, and love ourselves, and that really does help us to then pass that love on to somebody else.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's a big one. To me, it always feels that way when I talk to parents or here of small children, and also coaches. There's a lot of also therapists and psychologists. They specialize in family early education for parents and children, and I see how important it is. That to me, that's the first thing: learning to love yourself unconditionally and being that message for your children, because we can't really pass on that as a message only. We need to be that, right, Kim?
Yes,
It's almost the
absolutely.
embodiment of what we want to teach.
I tell the story about my mother. My mother was bipolar. She also took her life when I was 17, but I had her for 6 years before she was institutionalized, and she was, despite her illness, the best mother ever. And I realized that
Mm.
my ability, I believe my ability to be able to survive all of the things I've survived, is because she gave me that love for 6 years. And there's so many theories, the attachment theory now that's out there. So much of psychology says,
Yeah.
yes, those first 6 years are when you learn about attaching, about self-love, about all those things. So you got to focus on those first 6 years of life. So my poor grandchildren, I've been telling them I love them like
Yeah.
every other minute. So they've been getting quite a bit of that to make sure they get that for the first 6 years.
Yes. I love that. To me, what's not to love about that
Yes.
message and the legacy that you're leaving? It's very much needed. And I hear, like recently, I think it was last week, I heard something interesting that I never heard before. This woman that I interview, her name is Lorna. She has a daughter, and she said something interesting. She said that one day she was talking to her daughter, putting her to sleep and talking to her. And then she said, I love you before going to bed, leaving her. And her daughter said, my dad always say that, but I never feel it. It's not I don't know what that means. And I'm getting the same feeling from you. Like, I don't know what that, when you say you love me. And that's when she changed the approach. And she said from that day on, she started telling her what she liked about her. I mean, the details. I like when you help me with the dishes. I like when you go to school on time.
Yes.
She said a bunch of, and she said every day she would come up with different things, but they're genuine and real. And then she connected to that language much more than only the word "I love you." I don't know if that makes sense to you, Kim, but have you heard of that before? I never heard that before as a technique. Actually, I liked it.
Actually, when in the book, I have little templates for those legacy love letters, because not everybody feels comfortable writing. And so that I really recommend that in those love letters, in the ones that I've written to my family, thank you so much for this characteristic. Thank you for helping me.
Mm,
Thank you for the support you gave
yeah.
me. Thank you for doing this. I love your creativity. I love this. that's that's a great message, is to specify some of the things that they do, that you love about them, so that they can kind of, that helps them, that with the self-love that makes them feel a little empowered. Yes, I'm creative, or I could do this, or I could do that. It helps them with the self-love, but it also helps personalize the message, when,
Hmm.
especially even after you
Yes.
die, that, boy, you made a difference, they made a difference in my life. So I'm telling them about the difference they made in my life and thanking them for that. So of course, gratitude's a big part of all this stuff. So that's I love the way she said that. She expressed it so well, And now the next time I tell one of my grandchildren I love them, I'm going to give them a specific. I'm going to change how I
Why?
do that
Yes.
too.
Yes, it got me thinking. And then
Yeah.
the next 2 days I was doing that, like to my husband, being more specific.
Yeah.
I just caught myself doing it. That makes sense. Yes, because it's a simple way for the brain probably to
Yes.
assimilate that. It's not just words. But another question that I have for you is about, this the idea of death. A lot of people don't want to talk about this, so it's something that most people push away. They are not comfortable with the topic of death. Basically, it feels to me like we're just in denial
Yes.
that we will lose the body one of these days and the people around us. So, what is your message for those who, let's see, how do we learn to make death a friend in a way, embrace this truth?
Death is the one thing that's just inevitable. And people of different faiths or with no faith have different beliefs about what's going to happen after you die. And I happen to be a Christian, so I
Right.
think it's going to be a good thing. But there are some people that are not sure. Some people believe that this is all we have. And I just want everyone to think that no matter what you believe is going to happen after you die. And actually, one of the most fascinating things you can do is around a table with people you can trust and listen to is ask people what they think is going to happen to them after they die. It's fascinating, the different beliefs out there, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's part of that, like as we talked before about grief, one of the first things you have to do is accept it. You have to accept this is happening, accept that my life is going to end. And by doing that, then you can prepare for it. You have to accept it first and then prepare for it. We live in a culture where it's kind of hard to accept because we're almost led to believe, if you think about it, the message kind of is if you eat right and you exercise well, you'll live forever almost. And it's good to do those things because you want to leave more legacy the longer you live, right? But
Right.
it's going to happen at some point. And so we need to just accept it and understand it because we can't prepare for it unless we first accept it. And if we don't prepare for it, we may leave our family members in chaos and conflict. And if you live your life focused on with your legacy in mind, you're going to take steps to make sure that doesn't happen and prepare for your death. And it's much better to do it now. The clock is ticking. The time to prepare is now, because you don't want to wait till you have a terminal illness, because then you have other things on your mind. If I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, I would want to spend every minute with my family and make the most of those last days. That's not the time you want to start thinking about the technicalities of your will. So getting that done
Right.
now, because now is the best time, will again set your family up for emotional wealth when you're gone. And I'd like us to kind of change our thinking about that and understand that how important it is. If you have life insurance, and most of us do for our families, make sure you have emotional life insurance out there as well, and they're prepared emotionally after you die. And a lot of us, sometimes we get a little lazy. I know I've heard some people say, well, I'm going to give them my money. I got all this stuff. They're going to have this stuff. They could take care of it themselves. And that is a true statement. But the reality is that's you're setting them up for disaster if you just leave everything for them to figure out. And many times they're not the one figuring it out. It's the court system that figures it out. It's a probate system that figures it out. And it might not turn out the way that you want. So setting them up emotionally for your death is also an important thing. I talk to my grandkids about it. They lost their pop-up. We talk about pop-up all the time. And I tell them, one day I'm going to be gone, and I want you to be happy. I want when you're happy and you live your life fully, you're honoring me. So, I know you'll grieve for a while, but don't make it too long. Don't cheer, but you don't go too far.
Yeah.
But I want you to have a good life. And I know it works because my little 7-year-old Heidi came up to me a few months ago and said, Nana, and I said, yeah, Heidi. And she said, if what happens to Pop-Up happen to you? I said, what do you mean if I die? And she goes, yeah, Nana, if you die. And I said, what, Heidi? And she said, well, Nana, if you die, can we still go to Disney World? And I said, yes,
Yeah,
you can.
that's
And I
cute.
want you to have a wonderful time. So with that kind of thinking, that's what we want in our children and our grandchildren, to realize that when we die, it's going to be sad. They're going to miss our presence in their lives, but we want them They're honoring us when they go out and live joyfully.
Yes, gosh. I love how fun you are too. You represent the light, which is very playful at the same time. That's what I see in you.
Oh, thank you.
So it's really admirable. I mean, beyond admiration to me, it's divine again. It's just beautiful to see that in you. So thank you
Thank
again.
you.
Going back to when you said we have to start preparing now, some people would say, but I'm still young. I'm 40, I'm 47, and some people might be younger than me. So how soon is too soon, and when is now to prepare for that?
I think that if you have people dependent on you, for instance, when my son died, he was 19, didn't really have anything to prepare, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a family, when you realize that you need to have some life insurance out there because you're afraid of what might happen to your family, if you died, not if you die, but when you die, if you have life insurance, then it's very, very important for you to emotionally prepare for your family as well. So if you buy life insurance, you need to get the will, the trust, all of this stuff. A book, I recommend putting it in a binder with page protectors in it, so it's all protected. Have every document you need, so they're not searching around in your drawers to try to find everything, and including your titles, titles to your car, things you might not even think of, your passwords, all the things that they're going to need before you go. And if you have it in one book, it really does. It's a demonstration. It's a gift of love to them that they will appreciate. When you go, they will know that you were thinking about them, even you're thinking about them, how they're going to react to your death, even when you were living. And that's a true gift.
Yes. So I don't have children, but I have a husband, I have a dog, and I have my sister, and I have a nephew too. So is that something that I should be thinking and preparing as of now?
Yes, because if you don't prepare, what happens is your estate, first of all, typically your estate will go to your husband if you die first, or if he dies first, the estate goes to you.
Right.
But when the final one of you dies, the state goes into probate, which means the state decides who gets it. And every state's different, but many states it's like your closest relative. My nephew has cousins, and they took in their niece when she was a baby, but didn't tell her that she was her niece. Told her that she was their daughter, and also he didn't marry the wife, or the woman that he was living with. And when he died, all of his assets, and it was a big one, I think $5 million, all of his assets went to his sisters. The woman that he raised as his daughter, because he never formally adopted her, the woman that he lived with for 35 years, got absolutely nothing because they weren't formally related. So unless you want the state to decide where everything goes and go through the trauma really of going through all that, it's very important for you to write that up too and let everyone know where things are going to go, and then send those love letters to your nephew and to your sister. Those are really important things to do.
Yeah. So there's a quote that in your book, it says, love is made up of 3 unconditional properties in equal measure: acceptance, understanding, appreciation. Remove one of these 3 and the triangle falls apart, which, by the way, is something highly inadvisable. Think of it. Do you really want to live in a world with 2 dimensions? So for the love of a triangle, please keep love whole.
Before I started writing the book, I was giving seminars to businesses, to dental businesses, about keeping teams together. And, there's a love for your family, but there's also that general love you have for your coworkers and the people that you have. We all want to be appreciated. All of us want to be appreciated. All of us want to be acknowledged. And so that's just a good thing, not only for your life, but also in your business life and in just being out there in the world, to remember that.
Yes. Well, I was compelled to have you here, this quote, because it really resonated with me. Your entire work,
Thank you.
It's a gift to all of us. And there's another quote under the legacy of peace that caught my attention, where you quoted, it was Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
And the story of peace is a Rwandan story, and what happened there is they had this horrific genocide in 1994, just 30 years ago, where neighbors were the perpetrators. I mean, it wasn't an invading army. It was people that you knew. And it was just the most horrific thing I could imagine. Yet, when it was over, the survivors decided, first of all, to put the perpetrators in jail. So they were in jail for 20 years, people that did the killing. So there was justice. But they decided they needed to forgive. Like, how can you forgive the unforgivable? To forgive and to reconcile with these people. And they did that because they wanted their children to grow up in a world that was better than the one they grew up in. And they have done it.
Right.
It is, I mean, I get goosebumps right now just talking about Rwanda, because they have shown us, they've shown the world that you can forgive, you can reconcile. You do have to have justice, and you can bring your country together. And it is, I go there quite a bit, and people say, well, how can you go there by yourself, a 68-year-old woman? And I said, well, would you go up to Canada by yourself? And they'll say, well, yeah, we go to Canada by ourselves. They have the same safety rating, U.S. safety rating, as Canada. They have safety level 1, which is the safest countries in the world, safer than some places in Europe that we go to all the time. So there are parts of the world that we don't know about that can teach us so many amazing lessons. And I think that's another thing I'd like to do for Americans especially, is take a look around the world at all the good stuff that's going on out there and the people that have overcome things that we can't even imagine. And they serve as, like I said, the Rwandans were the best grief counselors I could ever ask for.
Yes, that's another topic in itself, fear, right? How we are driven by fear. That would stop us from actually living our purpose, our calling, closer to God. I think A Course in Miracles said that love and fear that don't belong together, they cannot coexist. So that kind of speaks under, I mean, you're speaking about that topic. And another question that came to me is, why do you feel so many people are disconnected from God and they do the things they do?
Oh, that is such a, faith is such an important part of my life. I can't tell you how, as I was going through my difficult times, people, I call them angels, they were just humans. I didn't have any supernatural experiences, but people would come by just when I needed them to say just what I needed them to say. And having a faith in a power that's beyond us, I think, helps us to get out of our narcissistic tendencies, which we would tend to have, right? When you think there's something beyond us, it gives us such joy and such peace in our lives. And I think that, first of all, sometimes people are in such pain, it's hard to look beyond that. Sometimes you tend to get angry when you're in pain. And when you get angry, you're not going to look beyond. But I would really encourage those people to really take a look at the possibility that there's something else out there that's far beyond us and that gives our life so much joy and so much purpose. And I just hope they search for it and they find it, because it's been transforming for me. And I think for you too. No matter where you go with it, it's a transformational thing to understand that there's more to you than what meets the eye, and there's more to life than what meets the eye. And I think that would, again, the source of so much peace and so much joy in the world is that divinity, and the fact that we're spiritual beings as well as physical beings, and to understand that is so important.
Yes. A billion times yes to that, a trillion times if I could say more. Yes. That's perhaps the reason why I do these things. And so many people that I meet that we do, that we write these books and we coach, we serve the way we do with these messages for a reason. Yeah, maybe we're trying to plant that seed. Yeah, that we can all return to it. Basically, that God never left us. It seems like something in us have left.
Sometimes I think it's our pride. Sometimes I think we know, and part of my faith is I don't understand everything. It kind of acceptance of things that maybe I don't understand. And I think sometimes we feel that we have to know everything, and we really don't. And accepting the fact that we don't know everything, the world, the universe is so much bigger than we can comprehend, holds people back. from looking for the divinity.
Yes, right. That's a big one. It's a trap in a way, the mental world, to live through the intellect only, right? Through the things that we want to know. And today I woke up thinking about, desires, all these longings that we have. There's something that came to me today about fear. Every time we have these desires to do something, I don't know if they all relate to fear. Perhaps not, because the desire to be closer to God, that would be quite the opposite, right? That's a devotional desire.
Right.
But I think most of the time we want to be somewhere that we are not, on a state of a mental state that we are not. Let's say a lot of people want to be happy and they kind of wait to be happy and all that. So it really, that message resonates with me, that we are coming from fear most of the time. It's important to, in a way, to question that. And that's what I do, kind of reflect and meditate every day, and I question every thought that comes through my mind. Perhaps not everyone, but most of them. I'm very aware of what's happening. So, and that takes work, right, Kim? And maybe that's why,
Absolutely.
too, most people, not willing to do the work.
And happiness, is many times happiness is what happens to you. You're happy about this, you're happy about this. But joy, contentment, that comes from within.
Yes.
And it's not dependent on your circumstances. I found so many joyful people in Rwanda that had absolutely nothing and had lost their entire families. How could that be? They had nothing, but they had internal joy, and it was spiritual joy that they had. And I think that that's a difference. And I think we fall into that victimization where we feel that our happiness is dependent on the world around us, and it's not. Our happiness might be, but our joy is not. Our joy is within, and we have to develop it from inside, not outside. Not certainly by not how much stuff we have. And as a baby boomer, I can tell you, I had to get rid of so much stuff that I collected. I just kind of wonder, what is this about? We need to realize it comes from within. That's our big problem as baby boomers, is getting rid of all this stuff, because who needs it now, right? So we have to get away from that thinking that it's the stuff, or it's like how thin we are, or how beautiful we are, or what we look like, or how we talk. How it's just, we are good enough alone, and joy comes from within.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. I love your wisdom, and I call it timeless, because it really feels that way. Like 500 years from now, if this is out there, it's still relevant and people can still relate to it. The evolving human beings from at that time. But I want to mention your services. So besides the books, you also do speaking engagements, legacy talks, coaching, emotional emergency. Oh, you have an emotional emergency handbook, but this is about, I think it's for the
dentist. Yes. When I was
the
teaching,
dentist, right?
when I was teaching dentistry, I focused on the emotional issues, not the clinical techniques, because dentistry is an emotional experience, so people are afraid, and wanted to help train dentists to take care of the emotions of the people in the chair and the emotions of their team. Keep their team together, and show them appreciation, and show them that they're part of an important team. It's a group effort, that sort of thing.
That's wonderful. So you've been doing this work for a long time,
Yes.
really,
Yes.
way before, right? Anything, all the things that happened.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Is that something do you believe that came with you already, Kim, or you learned those skills of being emotionally aware and intelligent?
I think that I learned them through my mom, and through I had after the first 6 years with my mom, with all the love that I got, then I had years with no love, and I had a difficult time.
Yeah.
And then I married a wonderful man, and, love again. And so I think that as you go through those good times and bad times, and you go through life, you learn along the way. And I've had, unfortunately, a lot of learning done through some, tragedies and things. But that, we just keep evolving and moving forward and keeping onto that journey. And now I'm at that fourth quarter. So I'm preparing, for the time when I'm no longer here and my children are here and my grandchildren are here.
Yes. I love that as a legacy as you speak, right? But it feels to me like this is something that you've been doing for a long time. And that's why, expressing yourself this way for a long time, way before any the books and all this.
Yes.
So it really kind of resonated that way. That's why I asked.
Yes.
But I want to also mention your website, drkimberlyharms.com. It will be clickable on the podcast notes, so it's easy to find. Before we say goodbye, is there anything that you left unsaid? Anything that's called to be here, Kim?
I think the main thing I'd like to say is there are so many people out there that are in grief and in pain. So many. You're in that grief pit and you're looking at the walls and you think you're going to be there forever. I would just like to encourage all of you to take it on as a fight, take it on as a battle, take it on as a task, and fight your way out of that. And I suffer from depression. I get professional help too. So you might need professional help. You might be able to do it on your own, but understand that goal at the top, living a joyful life, is absolutely worth it, and it is achievable. Takes a lot of work, and I just want to encourage you in the battle to get out of that pit.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much again for the inspiration, for being you, for saying yes to life to this point, to let the unknown, the divine flow through you so beautifully and clearly as you do. It's just very graceful. The word that comes to mind now is like I have been looking at you all this time. It's fun, it's light, it's playful, and it's graceful. Thank you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk again. Thank you, Kimberly. Take good care of yourself for now, and we'll be in touch again. Bye for now.
Thank you so much.